Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Tina and invited guests who've experienced the loss of their forever partner. Share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Tina.
Hello, Kimberly. Welcome to the Widowhood.
Good afternoon, good day, good evening, Miss Tina.
Okay. When you hear welcome to the Widowhood, what comes to mind for you?
Well, for me, it would be, I'm thinking, what is going on with widows today?
Okay.
How can all the widows come together and be a community? So I think of widowhood, like neighborhood, like sisterhood, like brotherhood. We all together. We're going through something together, collectively.
Okay. What would that collective environment do for a widow? If a widow's listening to this conversation, she go, I want to be by myself. I'm not trying to talk to nobody. This is hot trash. And why would I want to get connected with you or any other widows? Like, why?
So I would say that widow or that widower would need to just kind of listen in, relax a little bit and just know that when you're in something like this, say for however long, because, grief is not a time thing. And that's one of the things I would say. Grief is not a time thing. You're in a safe place. Let's talk about it. How can we relate? How can I support you in what you're going through right now?
Alrighty. And when you say support you, what is support? And that word can have a lot of different meanings in different spaces. What does support look like when you speak of those words?
So when I speak about support, I'm speaking from a place where I would say I'm going to be able to relate to what you're going through. So when I say support, talk to me. I'm open to listen to you, because a lot of times when you're talking to individuals, they're not actively listening. And I want to be able to actively listen to you and then make sure that I understood what you said by repeating back, not verbatim, but I want to highlight some of the things that you said for me to be able to support you going forward. So when I talk about the support, what did you highlight? So for instance, if someone says, I feel like I don't have no time to do anything for myself anymore, even though, it's just me, but I'm doing everything still. I'm still taking care of the kids. I'm still working. I'm still cooking. I'm still helping with homework and all these things. How can I do something for myself? So I want to help them to understand that self-care, when I say support, is so important. You got to be able to provide and figure out how you can separate those two things and bring self-care into your world. Because that right there is it's a big help for me. Even when someone says, hey, Kim, what are you doing for self-care today? That's a big help, because then it triggers something. I'm like, oh, you know what? I didn't do X, Y, and Z for myself today. I didn't go get a facial today. Or maybe I'll go get my nails done over the weekend. So supporting that person through whatever they're going through at that time. Active listening.
All right. So based on where that's taken us, because I do have two of your books here. I have Grief Almost Had Me, Peace Brought Me Out, 7 Steps from Grief to Peace by Kimberly Byers, and Grief Almost Had Me, Peace Brought Me Out, a 7-step workbook. Where can someone find these books?
So both of the books are all available on Amazon. But if you go to my website at www.byhers, that's BYHERSPOM.com, you can purchase both of those books from that site or Amazon.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you guys we're going to travel down the books a little bit. I'm not going to give it all away, but enough to let you see what you could possibly benefit from if you were able to, walk with Kim in these books. So Kim, what's your favorite color?
My favorite color is blue.
Oh, okay. And here you are all blued out. Okay. And I had on blue today too. Good job. I want to read, so we're going to start with the workbook. And I think there's always something very interesting with the first page or so as far as the writer's mindset or what their goal is. So I'd like to read that if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
Okay. Welcome. First, I want to give honor and thanks to God because this book would not have been possible without His grace and mercy. This book is dedicated to the memory of my mom, Valerie Gray Davis, my brother, Terrence R.D. Byers, my uncle, Daniel Roy, my aunt and cousin, Patricia Williams, and many others who have succumbed to cancer. Many of these steps may these steps provide you comfort and peace. Our loved ones would not want us to stay in an unhealthy place. Let these steps guide the way to peace. May they all rest in peace. God bless all who read this book. Much love. And there is a verse here, 1 Corinthians 13:13. There are three things that will endure: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. How long ago was this penned, and what does it mean to you now hearing it read?
So you mean how long ago did I write that
Mhm.
workbook? So the workbook was written back in 2023. And I wrote the workbook in order to give folks an idea of how they can slowly but encouragingly, I should say, I don't know if that's a word, but I'm going to use it anyway, work through the things that they're going through. So with the 7 steps, it allows you to work through those 7 steps in that book by writing some journal entries, talking about how you're feeling for that day, but also being mindful of the homework that's in there. Because I want you to say, it's okay to not be okay. I want you to be able to provide self-care to yourself. And I want you to understand that your loved ones don't want you to dwell in that place that grief has you on hold and you don't live anymore. You're just stuck there.
I'm going to throw you a zinger.
Okay.
What if my loved one and I had a horrible relationship? What if my loved one really in their last breath wished me ill and did want me to suffer and did want me to feel guilty that I got to live and they were no longer here? Because even though we would wish what you said, is the statement people dealing with complicated grief and other different situations, that is their plight. How would you have that conversation with someone if that is truly their situation?
You know, I'm going to tell you, Miss Tina, that's a great question because I did encounter that with someone that I was coaching. She had a horrible relationship with her husband, and she was trying to figure out how she could still go through grief because she was not grieving the loss of the relationship. She was grieving the fact that they never was able to come to a place of love and happiness. And that's the part she grieved because she worked so hard to get there and she couldn't. So the workbook helps you to annotate those things and talk about those things and write down those things, what still has you stuck. Because if you know you didn't have a good relationship with that individual, but you still grieving, think about what you're grieving. What are you grieving? Are you grieving the loss? Are you grieving the friendship? Some people may say, I'm grieving the sex. Some people may say that I'm grieving the fact that even though we had a horrible relationship, that person still took care of me. You know what I'm saying? You know, you have those people that take care of everything. Bills are paid, house notes paid, cars are paid, everything's paid, but our relationship sucked. You're still grieving that part. And we still have to remember those people that are grieving. We still have to work and help with them and to help them move the needle forward so they're not stuck in that place.
Thank you. I love that answer because the reality is grief is messy.
It
and
is.
People that have a relationship that doesn't fit what society wants to hear, there is another layer of their grief where they often don't feel like there's a safe space for them to be heard. Mm-hmm. They often feel like when the second zinger I'm going to throw your way, your faith in God is strong and pronounced for your personal journey. Mm-hmm. How do you work with someone if they don't have a faith? If God is not their jam and that is not their strong suit, how do you show up for someone for them not to feel like, well, I don't believe in your faith, so how can you help me in this pain?
Well, you still work through the items or the steps that they need because it's for that person, it's not about faith. It's about the feeling. So you want to talk to the person about how they're feeling. And you have to be very mindful when you talk about that. You want to hear what they have to say. So I heard you to say that your grief is centered around the loss of the person because I feel like, or they feel like God stole them from them, right? They say, God stole my loved one from me. I wasn't asked, was this okay? I wasn't given a choice. It was taken from me. And then what happened? What do I do with that? And then I sit, excuse me, I sit and I talk to them because I tell them, you know, it's not always about what other people around you think. And if you don't come back around to your faith or to God or whoever you serve, if you don't come back around to that, let's at least take care of you. Let's talk about your self-care. Let's talk about saying to people, it's okay for me not to be okay. And let's talk about how you can embrace the new change that is about to happen in your life. Because without that person, without that loved one or whomever you lost, whatever the relationship was, you want to make sure that they can go forward. You don't have to focus on the faith. You don't have to focus on God, but you also want to make sure that they know that there's a little, you try to sneak it in there and say, there's still a little bit of, praying that I'd like for you to do every now and again, and throw a quote in there, throw a scripture in there, and it don't have to be long. Just make it real short and straight to the point.
Okay, thank you. The table of contents, I want to read the different chapters and we'll dive into a few of those if you're okay with that.
I'm absolutely okay with that.
Okay. Step 1, express your emotions. Step 2, I am resilient. Step 3, living life to the fullest. Step 4, peace and positivity. Step 5, positive reinforcement. Step 6, journaling. Step 7, strong and capable. When I hear, so the way the book is set up, you have step 1, you have some content that is shared, and then there are journal prompts, an opportunity to put the date. I like that you don't have the date in there. And I want to share this with the audience. You may not do this in order. You may not be able to do this every day. Yes. And sometimes we want to go, okay, I'm going to get through my grief. I'm going to do this. I'm going to buy this journal. And it's a prompt for every day. And then you do like 3 days. And then day 4 is triggering. And you put this journal down. You do not see this thing for a whole week or 2. And now you pick it back up and you guilt trip yourself because you missed a week or you didn't stay on plan. That's not going to happen to you in this process. You get to do this as it works out. And those are things that I found that were super helpful. What were you going to say about that?
That is awesome. I am glad you noticed that. A couple of people were like, do I have to go do this in order? Is this the process? Like, I have to stick to your guidance? I was like, no, this is your book to do as you please. So you follow it the way you feel. You can skip to tip 7 or come back to tip 1, go to tip 6, come back to tip 2. You can just do whatever you want. I think that it gives a person a way to be flexible.
Yes.
And to also don't beat yourself up about missing something. Just do it in your own time and how you want to do it. If you want to date it, you can date it, but you don't have to.
Exactly. I will say this. I do encourage you to date it. And the reason being, when you reflect a year or 2 or 3 later, it is so helpful to see the dates of when different things have transpired, to see when we thought I would cry forever and I never have hope, to see that 2025, I was doing this and it felt hopeless. And now I'm 2028 and I can have hope. I can see the sun rising. I can see a rainbow and feel hopeful. Those dates can have purpose in that. And then the idea of saying, you know what, today I felt like I needed the resilient conversation. Maybe I needed the peace and positivity. Maybe the other day I needed to understand strong and capable. And just like grief is not linear, we are all over the place.
All over the place. Yes.
So can this process of going through this workbook meet you at your place of need? Just my tip, my suggestion.
I love it. I love it. Yes, that is so true. That is so true. And you don't want to guilt trip yourself. You always want to stay as much as you can very positive in your journey because your journey's not going to always be positive. Like you said, when people guilt trip you, if these parents or these widowers have kids, they're going to guilt trip them about that. If you say you want to go out and you want to date somebody else because you're ready to move on, but your kids are like, why are you ready to move on? It's too soon.
Hold on, you're coming down my lane. Hold on for a second before we get into the workbook. The guilt trip, zero, because the one thing that has happened has happened.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Your spouse is no longer here.
Yes.
The children, that was their parent. It is not the person you had the covenant relationship with. It is not the person you slept in the bed with and created them kids, DEM. Mm-hmm. It is not your neighbor who's been looking from the far that has not been in this situation. Mm-hmm. If anyone is applying guilt to you, don't let them.
There you go.
They do not get to control your grief journey.
Amen.
Especially if it's someone that has not literally traveled a road that you're on. If you're using unhealthy coping skills, if you're doing things that is impeding your health, yes, someone should caution you that. But someone surely saying, it's only been 6 months and I can't believe you're going to go on a date, and they marry. I'm like, baby, are you going home to somebody in your bed? Because last time I checked, fulfilled my marriage vows till death do us part.
Amen.
If you go on a date a day after your spouse passed or 3 years later, none of them equate to how much you love them because you stated you were faithful. Now, you may question whether or not you have the mental capacity to be in a relationship with someone else because you're still dealing with your grief, but they do not equate to your love for your person. I'm going to get into step one.
I love that. Yeah, look, I might need you to talk to my aunt.
So, okay, shameless plug. Every Friday on YouTube, I put out dating tips. And you can look those up. And it says best dating tips of 2025. And there's information in there because dating is a very difficult path to navigate as a widow. And I'll digress a little bit because people say, well, my husband was the best thing to me and no one will ever be like him. You're right. There will only be one Mark Fornwald. My husband was amazing. I'm not looking for his clone. I'm not looking for someone else to be him. At this point, the game has leveled up, baby, because I know what it feels like to be treated good. I know what it's like to be in a healthy relationship. If you're going to come to me, the game going to have to be strong. You're going to have to be put together. And I'm okay with saying no because I'm not that thirsty. I've already had somebody for 32 years in my life. I was prepared to be single. I was prepared to say, you know what? I'd rather have had a good marriage than to walk in something bad just for the sake of being lonely. I was prepared to work out at the gym hard, be doing all the catching the flights with my sister. But when we go out to date as a widow or widower, our children sometimes feel like, didn't you love mom or didn't you love dad? I did. That's how you got here. But right now, you're out living your life. I still have a life to live. I still have space for someone to come into my life and spend these years with me.
I love it.
So, yes.
I love it, Miss Tina. Look, girl, preach. I love it. Yes.
Okay. So, step one, it is important to accept when you're not okay and to be honest with those around you about how you're feeling. It's okay and perfectly normal to miss someone in the closeness you once shared with them. What comes to your mind hearing that?
When I think about that, I go back to my mom and my brother. And I will say I go back to my mom and my brother because I had a very good relationship with my mom and my brother. We were tight. My brother would call me and no telling what he was doing at that time when he called me, but he needed to call me at that particular time. And I'm like, bruh, what you doing? Why are you calling me right now? And then my mom and I had an ongoing phone conversation at 11:30 every day. So not to be able to call her at 11:30 every day, whether I was at work or I just came out of a meeting, I would make sure that I call her between that time. That's what comes to my, excuse me, that's what comes to my mind because I miss that. I miss having those conversations with them. And then my Uncle Dan, oh my gosh, he was a lawyer. So he would tell me different things and work with him about, on his, I was a good typer. I'm a good typer. So I used to type up stuff for him. And he was like, you sure you don't want to work with me? You sure you don't want to come work with me? I was like, no, Uncle, I don't want to come work for you, but I will do whatever you need me to do when I'm in town. And they live in Jersey. So, I'm always there when he helped. And my cousin, my aunt, cousin Pat, I didn't know she was my cousin. I always thought she was my aunt. I found out she was my cousin. So that's why I call her that. She was just a good person. She was just a good, positive, always had something positive to say. And she would just call me. I just wanted to hear your voice because you always have something to say. And we always laughing and joking. So, and I've lost many family members, just I'm sure as yourself, but it's nothing like that closeness which you had, you and your husband, and me with my mom and my brother. It was just a different type of closeness. It was just a different type of feeling when I think back and I'm like, wow, I really need to ask them about this.
Thank you for sharing that. A
Yes.
person that may be listening to this conversation and they may feel I'm not outspoken. I don't know how to articulate my feelings, but this is so hard. And I
Mhm.
feel like it's been 6 months. And when I talk to my friends and family about it, they're like, haven't you gotten over this? Yeah, tell me what made the eye blink. Tell me that.
So, okay, that is one thing that is very hard for me to swallow. I do not like to hear someone tell another person, you ain't got over that person already. It's been this long, or why you need to move on with your life. You need to do what you need to do, or whatever. It's been too long, and you still grieving. And the first thing that I would come out of my mouth, and I would tell them, grieving has no timeline. Don't tell somebody how long they need to grieve. Everyone's grief path is different.
Okay.
And if you tell somebody that they are only allowed to grieve for so long or such a period of time, who are you to tell them that? You can't tell someone what's in their heart and how they're feeling about how long they're supposed to grieve for somebody. You can't do that. That's unfair. That's very selfish on that other person's part for saying that to that person.
I like that you use the word selfish because
Mhm.
generally I have found the person that's making that statement, they're uncomfortable in your grief. They're
Absolutely.
uncomfortable with holding a safe space. They're too hyper focused on their own mortality and how
Mhm.
this could potentially impact them that they don't know how to show up and be there for a person.
Yep. Yep, I hear you. And it's very hard when you hear that conversation. You want to pull that other person aside that make that statement. You want to pull them inside and tell them, hey, let me ask you a question. Have you ever lost someone before that was very close to you? Not just anybody. Talking about somebody that created an environment with you that you enjoyed being in their presence. Have
Yes.
you ever had someone in your life like that? And that person now is no longer there. Whether it was a friendship, a grandparent, an uncle, a cousin, brother, sister, if you shared a sacred space with that person and it was wonderful when you were with them, and now they're no longer there, you should see the look that they give me when I do that, when I tell them that. They're like, I didn't think about it like that. I said, well, you have to because you have to be sensitive to the person that you're telling to get over it. You can't do
Excellent.
that.
This journal prompt in the same section as step 1. Why is it important to accept and acknowledge your feelings, even when they're difficult or uncomfortable?
Because I think that sometimes when you can acknowledge there's something going on with you and that you are feeling a certain way, it allows you to be able to express it instead of lashing out. When I was grieving for my mom and my brother, I was not a good person to be around. I'm gonna say I was angry. I was mad. And it was very disheartening because I had a 12-year-old son that was watching all of this. And so when he came to me and said to me, Mom, who's going to take care of me? I didn't think about that because I was hearing from his teachers he was having a rough time at school. He was lashing out and he was being nasty to people at school. And I'm like, he was watching me. So I had to change and I had to make that adjustment because I had to consider how he was coping with all of this because it was hard for him as well. He was very close to my mom and my brother. So I had to sit down with him and I said, you know what? Let's talk about how we feel. Let's talk about our feelings because I don't want you to have to go to school and struggle with people when they start talking about your grandma or talking about, somebody that died or whatever, because I know it bothered him so much. So we sat down, we had a conversation about our feelings. And I also provided him a journal to start journaling those feelings that he had. And I told him, you don't need to show this to nobody. This is only for you. You don't even need to show it to me. I want you to be able to, if you can't talk to me about your feelings, you write it down. And so that's why I say that journaling is important when it comes to your feelings, because we try to hold so much in and it's unhealthy. It's very unhealthy.
I would definitely agree with that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And going back a little bit, the idea of community, widowhood, is that name intentional? I, the widow, lost my husband, but hood means family to me. I'm from Chicago.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that's what that is. So my husband passed, but my children's father also died. My husband's brothers lost a brother. Nieces lost an uncle. Somebody lost a friend. And the delicate part of it is everybody is grieving the same person, but they're grieving a different relationship. And their personalities are different. So their grief could populate in a different way. I love how you mentioned about sitting down with your son and giving him space to express how his grandmother or his uncle no longer being here impact his life, whether he was just mimicking your behavior or expressing his grief differently. That exists and it should be validated and acknowledged. So
Absolutely.
That's really good. Step 4, peace and positivity. Just like with self-care and mental health, women often put off taking care of their physical health too, including regular checkup, exercising, and addressing any physical ailments. What comes to mind for you hearing that now?
So when I think about those things, I think about how, one, my brother was so focused on his family and he forgot to focus on himself. So when they found out that he had cancer, he was already at stage 4. And I think about my sister-in-law. You're here taking care of my brother, your husband. Tell me how you're taking care of yourself. My mom, I was her caregiver. And I realized there were some things that I wasn't doing for myself. So I had to start making sure that I'm eating and exercising and being healthy myself. Because if I wasn't here, how am I going to take care of her? I'm going to take care of my son. So all of those things, when it comes to self-care, we have to remember that check on men don't like to go to the doctor. I'm just going to put it out there. Men don't like to go to the doctor, y'all. Your husbands, brothers, nephews, cousins, whatever, they don't like to go to the doctor. But if you talk to them about things that they need to do for self-care for a man, we should be 2 times quicker taking care of ourselves because we have to be mindful of them. We want to make sure they're okay. So those are the things that I think about. Self-care. Okay, I need to get doctor's appointments scheduled for the year or every 6 months, whatever that looks like. I need to make sure that I'm getting my eyes checked, my ears checked, and all that stuff. Those things that we don't think, in our peripheral that we need to do. We think, oh, I got pain. Oh, well, it'll be all right. Let me just go take a pill. Oh, my leg is hurting. Oh, just stay off for a couple of days. You're going to be all right. No, there is some underlying issue that you may want to get looked at. So that way, self-care is in your purview. You can see it. I'm doing it. I'm focused. So I just want to make sure that your listeners understand that self-care for everybody is very important today. And today, please, please, please make sure you're getting checked out and push that to your husbands, brothers, cousins, uncles, aunts, everybody. Let everybody know. Get checked out.
I like that. What would you say if we bumped into each other in the grocery store and I was talking about my knee hurting, but I don't have time to do this for me because I'm going grocery shopping for my mom who's bedridden and I'm the only person to care for her. And I would just feel guilty if I took time and had a home health person there and I went and did that.
I would say it was okay for you to do that. But if I was in the grocery store and I ran into you, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to help you out, get them groceries. You're not going to be running around all these aisles. Let's split the list in half. Let me help you get the groceries you need. Let the healthcare provider take care of your mom for right now while you're out for a couple of hours doing your grocery shopping, and you get back as soon as you can. But I would minimize your time so you wouldn't be stuck in that grocery store for hours.
Okay. Not
Mhm.
only that, but flipping to the side when you're grieving and people say, is there anything I can do for you?
Mm.
Those mundane tasks are some things that people can pick up for you. You can sit there and pick out everything and let somebody else go pick it up for you.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Yep.
opportunities to relieve yourself of some of the stress that seem very simple. But when
Mm.
your loved one passed, it is very heavy to do some of the little tasks that we took for granted.
Yes.
This is under the same section, step 4, peace and positivity. This is a journal prompt. It's to make sure I got that right. What has your journey with grief and negative thinking been like? And how have you coped with these emotions in the past?
You want to know what I would tell your listeners, or you want to know what I did?
I want to know what you did. Girl, we came for tea. I ain't want to.
Okay. So what I did, I'm gonna tell you, Miss Tina, because that was the hardest part for me. I felt guilty, as if I felt like I didn't do enough for my mom,
Okay.
even though I was her caregiver. And I asked my mom to please go and have a second opinion. My mom did that. She went and had a third opinion, and she allowed us to go back and forth to Philadelphia to the cancer treatment center. She did that. She did, and she kept telling me she was doing this for me. And I said, you can't do this for me. You have to do this for you. Because if you're not doing it for you, what's the point? So I needed her to do that for her. And I felt guilty because when she told me that she was ready to go home, I'm a jokester. I ain't gonna lie, Miss Tina, I'm a jokester. I told her, I said, Ma, you are home. She's like, no, not this home. She said, this home. She went like this home. I'm ready to go home. She said, I'm tired. I'm tired of being tired. I'm tired of hurting. I'm tired of being in pain. I'm tired of them poking me. I'm tired of doing this chemotherapy. I'm tired of the radiation. And it broke me. It really broke me that time because I said to myself, did I do enough when she
Mm.
passed? Did I do enough for her? Was I in the right space that she needed? Was she in the right place that she needed to be in? And then for my brother, because he lived in Missouri and I live here in Virginia, that was very hard for me to not be there because I've always been there for him. But when I got there, I will tell you, Miss Tina, the first thing he said to me is, I don't want to die alone and please be here for me. And I
Mm.
didn't leave his sight until he closed his eyes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a lot. And thank you for
You're
sharing that.
welcome. You're welcome.
And I think it is important for people that you're serving as a coach for them to understand this is not like Kim just went and got her coaching certificate and she's out here giving you these theoretical answers. Even though when you're coaching, as you said very early in the conversation, by listening and meeting them
Hmm.
at their point of need. But your backdrop is your own experience, which allows you to have empathy in the way in which you would show up to support somebody.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Step 7. Oh, I'm sorry. I digress. I forgot to mention the daily affirmations.
Yes.
And when we are grieving, your
Hmm.
mind can play tricks on you. The head chatter game is strong.
Oh my gosh.
And it is so important. Like you may not be able to grasp something that's positive, to give yourself something food for your soul, to have a daily affirmation in here, because you may have been the praise worship person in church, and now you think, my brother used to sit next to me in church. It's hard for me to go to church. I used to worship, and now I don't see my wedding band on my hand, and I'm afraid to put up my hand. Maybe all the things connected in your life may have been to when you get in the car and you're driving, and maybe that was the time you talked to your mom on the way to work or your children. And those people not being here has a way of stunting your mental capacity.
Yes.
So having the affirmations here, you could pick them any page you want to. It may not go with what you're reading on the journal, but you can flip throughout the workbook and find an affirmation. And I'm going to read the one as it relates to step 7, strong and capable. I am strong and capable of overcoming any challenges that come my way. Didn't say the challenge is
Yes.
not going to come,
That's right.
but I am strong and capable. And
Hmm.
as you said earlier, it may not be fast.
Right.
Eventually, it may play out. It may take time to get your strategy together, to do different things, but you're capable. And I'm
Hmm.
going to say one reason why I know you're capable. You're listening to this conversation. You're
Absolutely.
listening to this podcast, which tells me you have decided this is hard. My loved one not being here is difficult, but I am seeking out resources, listening to podcasts, reading the blog. You're going to find whatever it takes for you to make sure to learn how to let this not be the place where your story ends. The grief will become a part of your journey, but this is not the thing that is going to overcome you. You are choosing to put in the work and overcome the situation. What would you say to that?
I would say you're absolutely correct about that. Because any time that you can say, I am not going to let this stop me, I am going to continue to push forward, and I am, and I will be able to get through this. That's what you want to do. You want to keep doing that, and you want to keep pushing forward. And you might have to constantly say that over and over again. But guess what? It is okay. Because at the end of the day, you'll remember that. You'll remember that in your walk for the day or your walk the next day. You'll remember the things that have allowed you to move forward and not stay stuck in that place of grief. Because again, grief is hard. Grief doesn't stop. It just helps you to get through it, not over it. Because remember, you don't just get over stuff. People always say, oh, just get over it. Just get over it. You'll be all right. No, you got to go through it. Yes, I said you got to. You got to go through it to get to the other side.
I love that. Another thing I want to mention about the book,
Mm-hmm.
I remember when my late husband passed, reading was hard. Looking at
Mm,
all that font on a sheet of paper. This font is not grandma super large, but it's amenable size to allow you to focus, to digest, to read, and to not get overwhelmed. There's just enough on each page to be able, because we're operating a little slower than normal. We're
yes,
not in our regular cadence. We want
yes.
something to help us, but we don't want to feel overwhelmed. I want to read this also on step 7, which is strong and capable. As a last step in getting through grief and depression, it may be beneficial for you to seek professional help. Mental health is real, and seeking a professional to help does not mean you are crazy or weak. Professional help can be beneficial to anyone, but it's important to note that therapists are not one size fit all.
Yes. Therapists are not one size fits all. So a therapist that you may need today, you might not need that therapist in 6 months. You may need a different one because sometimes grief can have you so tightly wound up and so angry and mad, and you just don't want to do anything. And some people don't even make it past getting through the grief because they've given up. They've stopped. And the therapist could not pull them out. They drug them up. They talk to them. They give them more drugs. They make them write. They make them read. But at the end of the day, that therapist is not for you. You need to move on. You need to get another therapist because you want to balance when you have a therapist. You want to balance. And if the therapist haven't moved you in the first 45 days of you seeing them, you need to get rid of them. It's not you because they're the professional, right? But you don't know what that therapist is going through too. So you got to be mindful of that. So have a conversation with the therapist so you know how long they've been in business, what they have going on in their world. Get to know that person. Get a little personal with that person because I'm telling you, I did. And ask them up front, are you planning on giving me medicine to get through this or to, as y'all like to say, get over it? Because if you are going to give me drugs, you're not the one for me. I need to move on because what I need to do, I need someone to talk me off the ledge. Talk me through this process. Let me know that I'm not crazy because I'm feeling so overwhelmed with the grief. You want to make sure that that therapist is listening to you and hearing you and not, oh, let me write you a prescription, you know, because that's not what you
I
need.
was, but I would say this,
Mm,
going back to that individuality, somebody may need medication. I've
you're
been,
right.
so it is understanding what you think you need and align yourself with the
And
person
that's
that serves you. What you were needing was that I've spoken to people that found their loved one that had committed suicide. That trying to take that out of their life, or the death happened in front of them. It's okay if medication is required in your particular journey. You may
Right.
want to ask, how long do you foresee me being on medication?
There you
How
go.
will this
That's a better way to
medication
put it.
impact my daily interaction? Can I be on this medication and still work? Is it going to make me lethargic? How is this going to impact the way I show up in life? Or what are some organic options? What are some foods or different teas or things that I can bring into my life? How does working out rigorously impact my ability? Asking those questions, be a participant in your
Yeah.
healing, in your journey, and not let someone just dictate how it's going to go. Maybe in that process of understanding who works better with you.
Yeah, and I agree with you completely on that. And I can backtrack on that because that is a true statement. And just to know, let your listeners know, I'm not saying that medicine is not good, because if you need pills, you need pills. You need some medicine to help you get over the hump. That's fine. But keep in mind that those are altering things that can alter your way of thinking is true too. And you need to be mindful of that.
Yes.
Because a lot of times we can be mindful of certain things, but if we're not mindful of the amount that can take us over and bring us into a different space, then that's difficult too. So we want to
Yes.
make sure that we're doing the right things for ourselves and for our bodies. The holistic way is always a good way as well.
Yes. I want to also share a prompt from step 7.
Okay.
How can individuals take care of themselves and set boundaries to aid in their recovery from grief and depression?
So I will tell you, for me, that was very important to set boundaries, because there was a lot of times people that I knew felt like they needed to be in my space and that they needed to be there for me because they thought, yes, I was heartbroken when my mom passed away. That's how tight my mom and I were. And some family members, I will just put it out there like this, some family members thought that I was going to die of heartbreak. They thought I was not going to make it after my mom passed away. Don't get me wrong, my heart was broken. I never felt, and I was close to my grandparents, but that kind of loss with my mom was a different type of loss for me. And I can only speak from my point of view. I was hurt. I was broken. I was depressed. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I didn't go to work. I didn't do anything. And that depression I felt was taking over the actual issue of the grief. I think the depression was taking over because that's what I felt like. I felt this like wave of just darkness come over me. And I felt like that depression was just taking over. It was not even oh, I'm grieving my mom, because I felt her presence still here in the house. But it was the depression because I knew that she wasn't. So for me, it was just like, okay, I have to do something different with this. I need a breakthrough. I need something to break out of this depression so I can grieve properly, because I wasn't grieving properly. I know I wasn't. But after I saw a therapist and after I kind of read, I had been journaling since my mom got sick. I started reading over all that journaling I was doing. And I had asked my mom if I could write about her. And she said, I do want you to do that. You can write about me, but I want you to remember, don't forget your dreams. And that right there helped me get through my grief. The depression, I was like, the therapist did that. She did her thing. She knew exactly what I needed. She did her thing. But the grief part is what was like now taking over. And I had to kind of like, I need to spread. I need to think, I need to walk, I need to work out, I need to do whatever. But yeah, the reading back over that journal that I was journaling about my mom was it was an eye opener for me. We had a great relationship. We really did.
In your mother's name?
Valerie Davis, yes. But we had an awesome relationship. Yeah.
That's beautiful. What moved you from your grief to want to show up for other people?
I found that there are a lot of people living with grief, their own type of grief. And again, it's not always about a loss of a loved one. It's other type of grief people go through, whether it's a job, the loss of a pet, or the loss of a relationship, or just the loss of themselves. Like some people are in relationships with others that they feel like they've lost themselves. They don't know who they are anymore. And because they feel that way, you're kind of like, okay, tell me how it started. Tell me what makes you think you lost yourself. And then when they start telling me things that they feel like why they lost themselves, even though, their family is still around them, it's because they were so focused on everybody else and they forgot, I'm a person. I am somebody. So in order to move through that, you have to remember, you got to take care of yourself. You have to set those boundaries with others. You can't let everybody in your wheelhouse. Everybody's not for you. Setting those boundaries is so important. And besides that, making sure that when you're feeling a certain way and that it's starting to make you feel not so good, and you're kind of feeling ill or inside, think about all those little things that have happened over a 5-day period, because something in there has gotten you to that place, and it's because of something that you didn't do for yourself. You got to take care of yourself.
Thank you for that. This podcast we're airing is going to take place on February 27th. And February is the month of love and the month of all of this. And there are people reminiscing about their spouses that are no longer here. Whether they celebrated Valentine's Day or not, the commercials got you unhinged, the jewelry commercials, the Hallmark commercials, the blah, blah, blah. As we get prepared to wrap up this conversation, what are some ways that I can love on myself in this season of love and self-care, and bring that into my space as a widow or widower?
I would say to still take yourself out to dinner, buy yourself some flowers, buy yourself some candy, go get a mani and a pedi, go get your hair, get a what's that, the facial with the anesthesia, what's the estate, what's the lady that does your facial, she does all that.
Okay, I get that done. But I know, okay.
I don't either, but I know what I'm talking about on that. Go buy yourself an outfit, put that outfit on, look in the mirror, look how fly you are, and then take yourself out. That's what I would tell you to do. Yes.
What if I would also tell you to write a book? To start taking the journal, start taking the things that you have done. And I think we did a really good job of covering through the 7-step workbook. I just want to intrigue you. I want to just talk about the title.
Okay.
Grief almost had me. Peace brought me out. How did that come about?
Like I said, when I was grieving my mom and my brother and my aunt and uncle, for me, it took something out of me. It knocked the wind out of me.
It does.
It knocked the wind out of me, and I felt like I couldn't get back up. I felt like I was almost like done. Like I had nothing else to go forward. Yeah, I had my son. I saw my son. I was looking in his face. But when he told me, Mom, who's going to take care of me? Who's going to take care of me? Because I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get out of this. So I had to find the breaking point where I could actually pull myself up by my bootstraps and say, hey, I got to keep going. I got to keep going for him. Even if I don't do it for myself, I had to keep going for him, my sisters, my brother. I have another brother. I had to keep going for my dad. I had to keep going because I knew that they too were watching how I dealt with the grief of losing the two people that I was very close to.
You mentioned something, thank you for that. You mentioned something earlier about even with your son being there, but still feeling alone.
Yes.
Can you talk about the feeling of being alone in a crowd of people?
Wow. Yeah, I can. That's what I get a little emotional. So my mom and I used to go everywhere together. When I was in the military, she would come and see me, whatever country I was in. She would travel with me. And when she would want to go somewhere, I would book the trip. We would go on this trip and we would be together. So when not even now, but before, maybe, up until a couple of years ago, when I would go out and I would be out with my family and my friends, I'm still looking for my mom because my mom was always there. So I felt lonely because I was missing her. at the time. So that was very hard for me. And it was like, oh my gosh, how do I get through that? And that's why I said it makes me very emotional, because I think about when I'm in a crowd of people, who would bring me up out of that. And it's the thought of my mom, and just reminiscing about what would we be doing if she and I were standing here and not just me with these people. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to read
Mhm.
something just out of chapter 1 of this book.
No problem. No problem. Let me grab some Kleenex. You got me over here crying.
No, your mother does. And those memories are beautiful.
Yes.
And,
Thank you.
and
Thank
we
you.
get to honor them by those tears.
Yes. Yes.
Chapter 1. Grief is one of many things I have experienced, and I have not fully been able to understand or completely articulate my feelings concerning. What I do now in grief can strike at any given moment, even when a person is still living amongst us. Expressing my feelings relating to my losses has always been difficult. Therefore, I decided to write this short yet informative book.
Yeah. When I wrote that, when I thought about when I was writing that, I was thinking about my grandparents, because my grandparents were part of my mom. So they were really close to me. I clung to them growing up. And my mom always said to me, your grandparents know all about you. They know who you are. They know all about you. They think about you, and they wonder about you every time you go, when you're in the military. And she said, I don't worry as much about you, because I knew this is what you always wanted to do. I knew that being in the military is what you always wanted to do. My grandfather told me one day, he was like, I don't know why your mama named you Kim, because he calls me Tim. That's what he called me. And I asked him, Granddaddy, you don't know my name? He said, no, I know your name. He said, well, why do you call me Tim? He said, because you should have been a boy. Because everything that he did, I learned how to do. But I was like, and my mom, my brother was 4 years younger than I, the one that passed. He wasn't interested in that stuff. My grandfather in the guard, I'm in there. He gutting a deer. I'm in the back of his truck watching him. He got his dogs ready to go hunt, and I'm back there feeding them. Everything, pulling apples and pears off the tree, and in the garden, and working around the house, in the truck when he working on the truck. What you doing? What you working on? I want to see. I want to know everything you're doing. So he never called me by my name. And then my mom always called me Slim. So she didn't call me by my name either. So it was just interesting, having that dynamic with them. And then, when they passed on, I was in the military when they passed. So I came home, and then I went back to wherever I was, and I grieved them there. But with my mom being here in the house, living here, and being with me her last 5 years of her life, it was like, wow, we got closer and closer and closer, because she physically was in the house. I was gone before, but when I retired, it was like, okay, Mom, you moving in with me. And she fought me on it. I was like, Mom, this is the best place for you. I can be here for your treatments and take you and go and da 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 da. And I just felt like that right there for me was just like, okay, I got to hold on to this as long as I can. Not knowing, she was going to be gone. To me, it was soon. It was quicker than I expected, but she was ready. And even though she was ready, we weren't ready. I wasn't ready. My son wasn't ready. But it allowed us to understand that that person is still with you. And if you miss them, for me, I can only speak for me. When I miss my mom, I go to sleep thinking about her, and I can see her.
Wow.
Yeah, I can see her. Yep.
Kim, thank you for sharing your heart.
You're welcome. You're
and
welcome.
having this candid conversation. What are some of the ways in which you serve the bereaved?
By having different master classes. One, I will tell you, I have a master class that allows the people that are grieving, or just people that want to have someone to talk to. I have a master class where they can come, and most of the time it's virtual. I have a couple of in-house or in-person events, but just having a master class and being able allowed to those people to be in this space, it really, really is refreshing. And I get so much positive feedback from them. You just don't know how much you helped me. You just don't know how I felt so stuck before I came here. And now I feel like I can do something now. I can move. I can do things that I didn't do and didn't want to do. So, and it's always good when people can reach out to you via Facebook or Instagram, or, even I'm on TikTok. That's how you and I met. So I like that. And I hope that your readers will try to come out and find me and look and see. And I have an event coming up in March, on March 1st in Springfield, Virginia. And I'll make sure that I put that information out so you can share it with your listeners.
Okay. I've asked you a ton of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions for me?
First of all, I want to say thank you for allowing me to share in this space, in your space, because a lot of times when we don't know, there's people like you that are out here to support those that are out there that need that support in the hood, in the widowhood. It's very difficult when they don't know. And I'm glad that you put yourself out there and you become so vulnerable and so transparent where people can see you and really understand that what they're doing and what they're going through does not have to end there. It can still move forward and they can still live. So I just want to say thank you for that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So no questions then? Okay.
No, I don't have any questions for you,
Okay.
because this conversation we had was just amazing. I've enjoyed it. Thank you. And thank you for also, making it known and clear on some things as well as we've had this dialogue. So I appreciate that as well.
You're welcome. I will allow you to say the final words and wrap up this conversation.
Well, I would say to your readers, your listeners, if they want to reach out to me as well, I would like them to go to www.byherspom.com. My business name is By Hers Peace of Mind. So that's how the POM comes about. And then my email address is kim@byherspom.com, or you can text the word peace to 571-604-5573 to reach out to me.
Excellent. Thank you for being here. And everyone, you have a good day. And I am so sorry for the situation in your life that has brought you to this conversation. But I am grateful that you allowed us to hold this space for you today.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune into Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.